Lose the Radio on Facebook. Home to all your favorite shows. Start your week out Sunday nights at 9 Eastern with Digital Influence Live with Sweezy. DGenX Radio Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8:30 Eastern. JTF 22 Radio Wednesdays at 8:30 Eastern. And coming up in August, Nothing's Off the Table. The title says it all. Just go to facebook.com/lose the radio. If you want to support the network or even be a sponsor, check out patreon.com/lose the radio for more information. Tonight's show is brought to you by Atlas Arsenal LLC, 217 Route 6, Milford, Pennsylvania, for all of your firearms, ammunition, accessories, and gunsmithing needs. And Iron Bean Coffee, ironbeancoffee.com for all your caffeinated needs. If you're not drinking Iron Bean, you might as well drink out of the toilet. It's also brought to you by BlueLineFarms.com, www.bluelinepharms.com. When you order from Blue Line, enter the promo code LTR20 to get your Lose the Radio discount. It's also brought to you by Coat of Arms Custom Gun Coatings in Milford, PA, 845-656-4925. Check out their website, www.coatofarmsgc.com. Custom Duracoat work on firearms, insulated tumblers, gaming controllers, etc. They're an 01 FFL and can perform firearms transfers. Check them out.
We are controlling transmission. We are controlling transmission.
You're listening to Nothing's Off the Table, the podcast where nothing, well, almost nothing, is too taboo to discuss. On Nothing's Off the Table, we give anyone and everyone a say. We may not agree with or even like the topic, but we're happy to give you a voice, listen to your perspective, and maybe even offer our own. Nothing's Off the Table is a Madsis Productions podcast. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and on iTunes. Also, be sure to check out our sponsor, Locust Ridge LLC.
What's up, everybody? Andy here with Nothing's Off the Table, and we're back partnering up with Lose the Radio. So it's going to be our first real official podcast with these folks. They're a great bunch of guys. Listen, I'm going to post links to them on the show, the after notes later, and please be sure to follow them. They are wonderful, wonderful folks. Talk a bunch of shit just like I do, which is probably why I like them. Anyway, so our guest tonight is Miles. Miles is going to come in and talk to us a little bit about everything, actually. But mainly, here's the hot topic. Are you ready for this? We're going to talk about some Second Amendment. So pro-gun versus pro-gun control. So, Miles, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you for having me. This is going to be a good one.
Oh, yeah. I'm ready to cause some hate and discontent with this one. Anyway, check it out, guys. You can't see him. You can only see me. I'm sorry for that. It's unfortunate that you have to look at this big Shrek head, as Stezo likes to say, but I don't care what the fuck he says. I'm dead sexy.
Yeah, you're sexy or dead, but whatever.
I had a good run. Fuck it, man. My wife will be $400,000 richer. Doesn't matter. Fuck it. I'm all about feeding the worms and pushing up daisies and all that shit. Anyway, so Miles, this is gonna be tough for me tonight. Miles, get it in my head now.
Sure.
Miles, yeah. So Miles and I just met like a minute or two ago. That's not even true. Miles, tell us a little bit about yourself, buddy.
Well, my name is Miles, and Miles Brantley. I have been a stockbroker here in Boston, Massachusetts for the last 19 years. I specialize in day trading, and it's something I love. I could go on for 16 hours about how to day trade, how to make a buck, how to lose a buck. But that's not the topic of this podcast. Maybe in the future, I'd be happy to talk about it. But that's what I do. It's what I love. It's what I eat. It's what I drink. And but today I'm really fired up about the Second Amendment. And I wanted to kind of stir the pot with you gentlemen and pick your brains and figure out, if we can get to a better place. Because this is a doozy. This amendment is not like the Third Amendment that nobody talks about.
Hold on, man. I don't mean to cut you off, but who the fuck are you calling gentlemen? Well, let's get that out in the open right now.
Not you. That's for
okay.
damn
All
sure.
right.
I
Well,
wasn't looking at you when I said that.
thank the Lord.
He was kind of eyeing me up. I'm assuming he's talking to the producer.
Well, that could
No, I
be.
wasn't looking at any of you. When I said the word gentleman, I was looking down at my shoes.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So there's 10 of them, maybe 10 gentlemen you're talking to. Let's move right along. So this day trading thing, you're into that. That's cool and all. What about? Well, let's just dive into the meat of the fucking topic here. Second Amendment. So the listeners can understand where your position is. Why don't you give us your position, Doggy?
Sure. I'd be happy to. My understanding of the Second Amendment is that everybody has a right to feel safe in a free society. In other words, you cannot have a free democratic society unless your people feel that they are able to protect themselves and carry on their day and go about commerce, raise their kids. They must feel safe. Now, the content of that amendment, we can talk about how to feel safe, what it means to feel safe, what policies to pass or not pass as a result of feeling safe. But that's my position.
So I'm not a real smart guy. So are you for or against? Shut up, Steezo.
I am for the right to feel safe. I think it is incumbent upon us to discuss what that means. But there is a Second Amendment. We have to read the text and we have to comply with what it's asking us to do. And I can read the amendment if you'd like.
Well, before we go there, let's dive into the definition of feeling safe. What is safe and what's not safe? And what's your interpretation of the word safe? Not safe word.
Sure. I think.
And not safe place.
Right. Two different things. I think when you go to bed at night and you aren't thinking about your security, that means you feel safe.
Okay. So what about every day, like going to work, going to school, going to the gas station?
When you go to the gas station and you're thinking of pumping gas, you're not worried about feeling safe. When you're in school and you're learning and you're focusing on algebra, you're not also worrying about how to be safe. And so this is safety. It's about freedom. It's about freeing up thought. It's about expanding the potential in each person in the most free way we know how. And that means getting the hurdle out of the way of feeling unsafe, of feeling restricted, of feeling unfree or frightened.
Steezo, you were going to chime in?
I just wanted to say, when you go to school, you're not thinking about algebra. You're thinking about girls and things you're going to do after school.
Even better. But you're not thinking about, should I wear this blue shirt or this pink shirt, and what's the best camouflage if there's an active shooter? And there are kids and parents right now thinking about that when they dress their kids in the morning, and I think that is an abomination.
It is, because they let society dictate their thoughts on if you have to teach your son or daughter or talk to them about what happens in an active shooter situation, it's a fucked up situation. It is. It is. I agree 100%. It absolutely is. But that's like less than 1% of any child's childhood memories. Okay, so if we get rid of it, and not get rid of it, but why is that conversation even brought up?
Well, that's a good question. I think the media does blow all kinds of stories out in proportion. Mass shootings are a small fraction of all shootings, and so the violence in school is grossly distorted in accordance with the statistics. But notice I said feel safe. I understand that the numbers might not suggest the kid is definitely going to be shot at school each day. But if the parent feels unsafe, we have to address that. If the kid feels unsafe at school, you have people that are not feeling like they're part of a free society. And we have to address that because we don't have a free country if people aren't feeling free. And if they're restricted during times of, that they should be growing and bonding, like you said, meeting girls, learning algebra, exercising on the soccer field, whatever. It's not a free country at that point.
Why did you have to go soccer? Why not football? Are you not? What is your descent? Are you from Spain?
Nobody plays football on. I don't know when did you go to elementary school, if I may ask?
I graduated in 1992.
Yeah, nowadays football gives people traumatic brain injuries. They're out there dancing.
Yeah. Trust me, I know. I played football.
So let's back up a little bit. You're talking about the freedom to feel safe. All right.
Sure.
Okay, I agree with that 100%. But let's just go in a different direction. So we're talking about freedom. So let's dive into the Second Amendment. So with that freedom also comes along the freedom and the right to bear arms. Yes, agree or not agree? So I'm still a little confused here, real quick.
Sure.
What your position is?
All right.
I think I know, but
I look at the originalist intent, and I think the originalist intent of the founders was we need people to feel safe. We need them to have free exercise of thought and behavior. And if they feel unsafe, if they feel like they're in danger, that is not democratic. It is not free. And that's what I think the content of the Second Amendment tries to express. That being said, and I really think it's important we just quickly read it. It's about one line. Let me just find it. I'm holding a pocket constitution.
I thought you were going to say something else there for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, me
I
too.
have one of those too.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, comma, shall not be infringed.
Yes, exactly. Do you know what a free militia is?
I would be happy to
That
hear
are
your explanation.
that are the other three people in this room that decides that the government is being tyrannical and we can therefore go against that government.
Well, I
We're
would
trying
agree
to-
with you. I would agree with
We're
you.
trying
but
to deny us of our constitutional rights.
I would agree with you, sir. But the reason I run into problems when it comes to that is that in Article 1, Section 8, there's a whole clause about how to suppress insurrections and how militias are to be trained and disciplined by the government and paid for by the government. Now, when we're talking about paying...
That's called Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Sure.
So militia, even in accordance with the original Constitution, does not sound like a group of free people in this chat taking up arms.
No. It's granting free people of a sovereign nation to be able to form their own militia. That's all that is. We can come together as one and rise up against the government. That's a militia. Now the other four branches of the service, those are militias as well, but they're backed and funded by the United States government. So that is the epitome of the Second Amendment. If you can form a militia against the other militias that your government has formed against you, that's your right to do that. That's your right to fucking rise up. I'm sorry to say the F word. I don't know if this is FCC friendly.
Yeah, it's totally a fucking family show. If you can't
Okay.
tell by all the fucking F-drums I bopped already, dropped, whatever.
That's what the Second Amendment is all about. You can, if you have enough people, if you can gather enough people to think that your government is being tyrannical in any fucking way, you can form a militia and go against that government. That's our right as a people. We did it back in 1776 against the British. That's why we don't care about the Queen or who marries who or Princess Diana or fuck all that shit. It's the United States of America.
Now, I'm not disagreeing with you that people should always put a tyrannical government in check. But if we're looking at the text of the Constitution,
Well, then you shouldn't live here. Whoa. Then you shouldn't live here. If you can't put a tyrannical government in check, you shouldn't be here. There's a line forming for Canada right over my fucking right shoulder.
Let me clarify. I don't know if Miles.
Feel free to keep migrating fucking north.
No. I don't know if Miles misspoke there, or if that's what you meant to say. So clarify that again. Did you say you don't disagree with the American public to be able to rise up against the tyrannical?
No.
Or
we're veering off course. I'm talking about what's in the text of the Constitution, and when it says to provide for calling forth the militia to suppress insurrections. An insurrection is a rebellion of the people against their government. The Constitution wants the militia to suppress insurrections, to suppress people who are trying to subvert the government. And they call upon that militia to be paid for by the government, trained by the government, disciplined by the government to suppress those insurrections. Now, I agree with you that we need to put a tyrannical government in check. But if you're going to be fair and look at the Constitution, it's just not in there to support your argument. We can have an amendment. We can have a 28th Amendment saying, "Thou shalt overthrow your government if it's tyrannical." But it is currently not. The context, it would be absurd to assume that these militias are anything but what is today an Army, Navy, Air Force, or National Guard.
Well, let's talk about the Posse. I can't even say it right here because I'm been drinking a little bit. Was it Comitatus Act? The Posse Act. You know what I'm talking about? The one that was in 1878. That was that was enacted. So it basically says that. I mean, so that's great that we want to have. You're saying we have to have this militia to come in and do that. Well, it's exactly what you're describing the armed forces as, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, but this act that was enacted in 1878 says that the armed forces of the United States can't do that. We cannot use. They cannot. We cannot use the armed forces of the United States against their own people. But now you're saying that the military or the militias have to be trained by the government and funded by the government, if you will. I don't know if that's exactly what you said or not, but point being is that the Second Amendment, even with that verbiage you just read, was but it was amended because of the fact that of what happened with England. So if we've got a tyrannical government coming in trying to take away our rights one by one, and it never comes, it's never all at once. It's always a slow, insidious manner in which they do things. That's our right to defend ourselves, to defend our country, our families from that act.
I'm not saying I disagree with what you just said. I'm not saying that, I've been to Auschwitz in Poland. We ought to do everything humanly possible to prevent a government from turning on its people. And we ought to structure a society that can do so. But if you're saying that the militia is a group of private citizens, it says in the Constitution that the government is in charge of organizing, arming, disciplining, and even compensating the militia. And that is just not a private group of citizens. That is a very clear analog to the military today. And if you also say that the Second Amendment's militia, that we have a right to bear arms via that militia, the distinction is very clear and consistent. And militia are not private citizens. If you want private citizens to have guns, make it the 28th Amendment, is what I'm saying.
So let's do everyone a favor here, since you just so happen to have it in front of you. How long is it going to take you to read that in its entirety?
Sorry?
How long would that take you to read in its entirety, the Second Amendment?
Just the Second Amendment?
Just the Second Amendment.
If I flip to it, it just takes like 5 seconds.
Well, to be fair to our listeners and to our viewers, let's read the whole thing so that way we're not just taking a snippet that can be misconstrued. Let's get the whole thing out in the open.
Before he does this, I think
Yes.
we have a call.
Oh, let's take the call.
Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, you do.
Hello.
Hey guys, first time caller, long time
Great
listener.
topic of the show.
So I'm curious about Miles' stance on the Second Amendment, because Miles has stated over and over again that he is all about everybody having the freedom from living in fear, but he has not stated whether or not we have the right to bear arms. It's like the douchiest politician response ever for the past 10 minutes, and he has not yet once said whether or not he believes that citizens should be armed and have the right to bear arms like it says in the Constitution. You have different militia definitions. One definition of militia is supplemental forces to add on to the government's militaries. Another definition of militia is civilian groups of militant people who are actually in an anti-government or for anti-government against tyrannical government. And then you have the other definition of militia, which is anybody who is of military eligibility, age, and conditions in the United States. So there's definitely different definitions of militia, but Miles has not stated yet whether or not he thinks civilians should be able to bear arms, like it says in the Constitution. And I'm out.
Thanks for the call, brother.
right.
Appreciate it. All right, Miles, that looks like you just got shotgun, buddy. So what is your position?
My position is that they do have the right to bear arms, but that this militia talk is placing a greater weight on that right than is deserved in via the context of the Constitution. If you read the Constitution in its entirety, militia is militia. It is separate than the right of the people. It does say the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Fair enough. That does not mean you have the right to any weapon you want, anytime you want it, based on who you are. There are no constitutional guarantees in that. We can grasp at some kind of historical lesson or some English law text, but that is not fair. We have to read the Constitution. That is the supreme law of the land. You don't get to cherry pick moments in history that advocate for your particular position. And we can talk about what arms should be, and maybe it's deliberately ambiguous so that we have these kind of conversations. But to be militantly in favor of unlimited ownership of firearms, however deadly, is insane. And to think that people should be defenseless when they go to bed at night is also insane. And I think the Second Amendment strikes a nice balance for reasonable people.
Well, I got to tell you, I do feel that it's ambiguous on purpose. The Constitution was meant to be a living, breathing document, right? It's not something that's set in stone, hence amendments and whatnot. But I kind of disagree with you a little bit. And of course, this is a friendly disagreement. I don't think they should regulate what we should or should not own. You know, if I'm a collector of weapons, say I'm a collector of antiques and I want to go out and get an old style Gatling gun, I pay my tax stamp, I pay the registration, I go through the federal firearms and do all that. Why should I not, in a free society, be able to own that weapon?
Because your ability to own it means other dangerous, impulsive people can own it, and now other people's freedoms are infringed upon. I agree that in a vacuum, I want you to own it. I'd let you stack your entire living room full of deadly weapons. I trust you in particular.
It's the basement.
But there are violent, impulsive, alienated people that are going to own weapons and infringe on any one of our freedoms at any time. And so if you believe in the principles of the Constitution, freedom and expression, you name it, you have to look at these things in totality of the document, not just, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but I think some people militantly celebrate things based on their own wishes, and they don't consider that we live in a society. a particularly violent society.
No, go ahead, my brother. I think Rail wanted to say something. Maybe yes, maybe no.
I just want to throw out. Yeah, I just want to throw out real quick that Miles has stated numerous times about people having the right to live free from fear. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say you have the right to live free of fear of your fucking world. It's called the world. It's what it is. There's no constitutional right for the protection of fear because everybody's fucking afraid of something. And if you constitutionalize what everybody can not have to be afraid of, nobody's going to be able to do shit, period. There are tons of things out in the world to be afraid of. It's perspective. It's all subjective to what your fears are. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed. You are literally imposing your thought process and infringing on people's constitutionally written down right to bear arms based on fear. It's fucked up. Okay.
I just want to say real quick, that sounded a lot like the last caller.
Yeah. No, that's respectable, though. I mean, that.
We had a caller?
No,
I missed it. I'm sorry.
That is a respectable position. I'm not saying it's wrong, and I never said we should restrict the right to bear arms. I was very clear. I think we should all have the right to bear arms. But again, we need to talk about the limits of that. I think.
I'm assuming your favorite pair of shoes are flip-flops.
Those are mine, dude.
No, I've been clear. I think these are intentionally ambiguous, like Andy said, and they're intentionally ambiguous to spark debate and free expression and freedom of speech, and that's why the country is pretty robust. But and that's kind of what we should be talking about next: is what are those limits? I mean, it says if you want to take what I think is the wrong approach and equate militia with private citizenry, it does say well regulated. Again, I think it's a completely wrong comparison if you read the rest of the Constitution. But well regulated, what does that mean? I mean, between a slingshot and a bazooka, what are we talking? It's a well regulated militia.
So we have to go ahead, excuse me.
I just real quick.
Yeah.
I think well regulated means people who have been through training and know how to handle firearms and know how to use the weapons that they have in their cache, if you will. I think that's well regulated. If you have been trained or know how to use the weapons that you're using going into the battle that you choose, I think that is a well regulated militia.
So I disagree, and here's why. Just because you can operate a weapon doesn't mean your emotional temperament is well regulated enough to be responsible and own that weapon.
Right, because I didn't take gender studies in fucking college. That's exactly right. You're exactly fucking right. Because I don't understand this whole gender studies bullshit. Because it doesn't exist. I don't know. I do what I do throughout the day and I adjust and I adapt accordingly to every fucking situation during the day. Somebody says something I don't like. Oh, I just don't follow that person's post anymore. I do something else that guy makes me laugh. I follow his post. How about some self-accountability instead of trying to lay a fucking law of the land and be like, well, you can't say that. Fuck you. I can say that.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I don't mean to cut you off.
Is the Constitution. The law of the land is the Constitution. So the framers obviously believed we don't have the kind of self-accountability to legislate ourselves, or we wouldn't have a Constitution. And Madison even said, if men were angels, Federalist 51, we wouldn't need a constitution of laws because we would govern ourselves. So these are all imposed on society as a result of us unable to govern ourselves.
Well, I will see that, and I'll agree with that. However, when the law-abiding, when the law-abiding citizens are doing everything to follow the law and is still obtain firearms, then there's nothing wrong with that. I also counter your point to what you said earlier, to the fact that, yes, people are going to get weapons no matter what, whether they do it legally or illegally. You know what? They're going to do it regardless. So why are we putting this, Why are we handcuffing the law-abiding citizens, which we shouldn't do? Because once we take away the gun from the law-abiding citizens, then the criminals have won because they're going to get them regardless. And I know you've heard this argument before, but it's the truth. I mean, shit, look at Chicago. Illinois is like the most liberal state out there as far as gun control goes. And the city of Chicago has an enormous death rate. And it's all firearms mostly. But why is it firearms? Because they took the firearms away from the law-abiding citizens who can't defend themselves. Let's go to Texas. You've got Texas where open carry is legal, right to carry is legal, and there's not as much crime in the areas where these criminals know most of these people are probably packing. Now in the inner cities, it is what it is, and that's not a racist comment at all. It's not a bigoted comment. It's facts. You cannot dispute the facts, the numbers, the statistics. But the Constitution, the Second Amendment, is kind of contradicting, as you just read to us. It gives the citizens the right to bear arms, right? And it shall not impinge on those rights. But then it comes right back with another paragraph that says it has to be a well-regulated militia. I think it's really talking about two separate entities there is what I believe. I could be wrong. I'm just a simple guy that owns guns.
That's why I tried to communicate that given the difference of our given the difference in history, where we live today versus how they lived back then. They were obviously trying to empower people to create a safe and secure state where democracy could thrive. And we have to keep that in mind when we write laws today. Their way of doing that was empowering a militia by organizing, disciplining, compensating that militia to, again, suppress insurrections. I mean, that's the most damning piece of the Constitution for Second Amendment enthusiasts. Repelling insurrections. An insurrection are the American people rebelling against their government, and the founders expressly wrote that the government is in charge of repelling insurrections via that militia. I don't see much of a case if you're equating militia with private ownership after that. I just don't.
I feel it's worded the way it is for two specific reasons, right? One, the militia, and then one. What the hell is going on? I'm hearing voices in my head again. Anyway,
Somebody's got something playing in the background and needs to fucking be silenced.
yeah, I don't know what's going on here.
What?
I don't know what the hell that is. I don't think it's me. Anyway, what the point I really want to get across is, somebody brought up the fact earlier that the government regulates what we can drive, right? It regulates we have to get licensed for vehicles, but it doesn't say that they don't get into what we can and can't drive. I don't know what that is, man. I don't think it's me, but let me look. That's awful fucking weird.
There's something playing in the background of someone's computer.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at my stuff here. I don't see it. Oh, maybe it was me. I fucked that up. Sorry, fellas.
You forgot to click out of Pornhub.
Shh, stop it. Hey, man, you know why I surf midget porn, right? Makes me look huge. Anyway, but my point is,
I like him for a reason.
yeah, the government, we have to be licensed to drive a car, but it doesn't regulate what car we can buy. It's the same thing. The Second Amendment is saying we can have arms. We are allowed to arm ourselves, but
not only that, driving is a privilege.
Sure, and Second Amendment is a right.
It's not a right. It's a privilege.
Absolutely.
It's like healthcare.
Oh, you just started a whole different.
Ooh,
boy.
Oh boy.
Anyway,
did Banjo Neck strike a chord?
Well,
you're right. You're right in a sense. Not to pivot, but there is no expressed guarantee of healthcare coverage anywhere in the Constitution. But it does talk about the general welfare, both in the preamble and in Article 1, Section 8. And the general welfare of the people, in my view, means you don't close the hospital doors when they're having a heart attack.
You just
But
started a
that
whole
is
different.
interpretive to the
Ooh,
states.
did we?
Whoa, whoa,
That is-
Did
That's interpretive to the states, and people can choose to live in Vermont or New Hampshire as opposed to Louisiana if those states reflect their values. I mean, if you look at life expectancy, I think raising a child in Vermont is it's a much better move than raising them in Louisiana. And the healthcare
why?
system,
Because you're racist?
they're both white states.
No, they're not.
So,
Vermont is more predominantly white. But one is
yeah.
run by
In Louisiana, there's a lot of. In Louisiana, there's a lot of poor, broke black motherfuckers.
Louisiana has had Republican governments for the last 4 decades who choose not to have a welfare state, and that's their choice. But again, I wouldn't want to raise a kid with the life expectancy the same as Nicaragua or El Salvador in the United States of America.
And I wouldn't want to raise a kid that fucking has to grow up in 38,000 inches of snow per year.
That's fair. I mean, but that's the nice thing. We don't have. No one's forcing us to live in Vermont.
all right, let's get back on topic here. All right, we're straying a little bit here, but anyway, so one of our listeners sent a message in, and he wants to know if Miles, you know what it takes to obtain something like a Gatling gun, what you would have to do.
I don't. Does he have a? Where does he? Is he trying to imply that there already are a lot of regulations?
I believe that's his point, and yeah, there are a shit ton of them.
Good.
Good.
I think that's where we need to be. That's exactly where we need to be.
So it's very difficult. It's not cheap. It's going to cost you, which comes back to my point earlier. The law-abiding citizens that are going to do the things the right way, to follow the law, they're going to do it right. They're going to pay the money. They're going to go through the FFA. They're going to get the tax stamps. They're going to go through the dealers, because you can't go to get these specified weapons anywhere else but going through a dealer. So now I do want to say
I have a little bit of a nuanced discussion I want to have about that. About when you've said it twice now. The bad guys will always get the guns, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. They're going to sell the crack. They're going to rob. They're going to steal.
I agree with that, and that's one of the reasons I think we ought to be a little more hesitant about firearm ownership, because the truth is, and I think anyone on this panel could agree with it. No matter how armed any 4 of us are, we could be armed to the teeth. If somebody really wanted to kill any of us in our private lives, they would pick a moment, and there's plenty moments in 24 hours of the day where we are off guard. We're doing this podcast. We're not looking through our windows. We could be, in a urinal at a baseball game. We could be jumping into a wave at the ocean, and they could still find a way to kill us, no matter how armed we are. And all of these mass shootings, and I only use mass shootings as an example because they're on the news, but any shootings, they're all examples. I mean, what percentage of these mass shootings were actively thwarted? Columbine had armed security guards. It wasn't thwarted. Parkland had an armed guard, a police officer who ran from the scene. And I know that's not reflective of every shooting, but the point is the attacker has the advantage. It's like a blackjack dealer. Yeah, you can't see his card, and so you're always at a disadvantage from the house. And so I think to some extent, even the most good faith gun owner goes to bed at night still very vulnerable. And by encouraging mass ownership of firearms, you're making yourself more of a prey than a predator.
I'm glad you brought up mass shootings, because I was going to go there, but since we're here, we'll go there now. Mass shootings, it's not a gun problem.
Yeah.
It's 100%.
What?
It's not a gun problem, 100%.
Okay.
It's a mental health problem.
Okay.
Hands down. 100. We have a mental health problem in this country. And I'm a firm believer, and I'll probably take a lot of shit for this, but I am a firm believer that we need to bring back the mental asylums. You've got all these and schizoaffective people that are living on the streets that are non-compliant with their medication. They go to the prison systems, they get on their medicines for a while, and they're compliant under force, and they do well. But as soon as they're released, they're not compliant with their medications. They're back on, they're back on self-medication, whether it's drugs or whether it's alcohol, and it's definitely a mental health issue. Even with the kids, the parents know. If you're a parent, I'm a parent, if there's something wrong with your kid, and if you are a gun owner and you have a child with a problem, it's your responsibility to lock those guns up. And if you're really that worried about it, then get rid of them. The Constitution says we can own weapons, absolutely, but with that right comes responsibility. So if you have a child or someone in your family that is mentally not right, then it's your responsibility to make sure that they never get to them. And with the case of Columbine, what do? Those kids stole the weapons from their parents. And then all the other mass shootings, they acquired the weapons from somewhere else, illegally, I might add. So, let's even go a little bit further. You look at England now. England does not have a gun problem, right? Because they banned guns. But do you know what kind of problem they're having now? Yeah, mass stabbings. Mass stabbings. Stabbings are on the rise. I don't remember the statistics off the top of my head. My point with that is if you've got somebody that's fucked up in the head and they want to do harm, they're going to do harm no matter what. And if
100%.
If you take that ability to defend yourself away, well, then you're just another statistic. And brother, I'm not going to be a statistic.
Let me ask you guys a question. So, would each of you, the three people on this panel, would you feel comfortable if anyone boarding a plane, any plane you're on, any vacation you're on, would you be okay with each of them being armed with an AR-15 if they were so inclined to be armed by one?
Well, of course not.
Absolutely, as long as I could be.
If everyone on the plane has a gun, yes.
I say no to the AR-15 because it's just harder to carry.
What if only 5 of them have a gun?
That's fine. If you choose not to have them,
As long as I can have mine.
There
As
you
long
go.
as I can have mine, they can have theirs.
I respect the consistency in that. That's what I was going for. Because one time I talked to a guy who assembled his own weapons. He was the most pro 2A guy I've ever met in my life. And I said, well, do you support, there was talk about this back in the day, I guess it was 4 years ago. And the Republican National Convention didn't want to allow firearms on the floor of the GOP convention. And I said, well, do you support firearms for people going to the convention? And he goes, no, I don't. And I was like, really? You're so pro Second Amendment. Why not? And he said, I just don't think it would be a good idea. And to me, I completely lost 1,000% faith in everything he's ever said or believed before that moment. Because if you don't believe, if you believe in the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms, it better be consistent and unequivocal absolutely everywhere. There's simply no reason you wouldn't support it on the floor of the GOP convention.
Back in the late 70s, there was a city in the state of Florida that rape percentage was 86%, and the city actually required citizens that lived in their community to carry firearms. Mm-hmm. Rape went down by I think that 90%. It went down to 3%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think it was Georgia. I'm going to look that up right now.
It might have been Georgia. It was a city. I looked up Florida. I couldn't find any results, but there was a city that required all of their citizens to be armed, and it kind of takes it back to the Old West type situation where, if you walk into a store and you want to rob them or steal something, you don't know if the person next to you is carrying a gun as well. Now, I'm a 2A guy. My pistol's right here on my hip. I'll show it to you. I have no problem with that.
Whoa!
I didn't point it at the camera, and I had perfect trigger discipline. As a concealed carrier owner, you are an extension of the law. If you're at the grocery store, or if you're in a parking lot and some guy's trying to, I mean, I hate to say it, but put his dick in your butt, and you don't want that to happen, I can legally shoot him. In the state that I live in, you can't, like, sodomy is like the number one law. Like, if you're trying to sodomize someone, I can shoot you. So if you don't want to be sodomized and I have a gun and you don't, where's the bad in that? It doesn't make me a bad guy. It makes you more safer. If there was more people like me in this world who thought as not an extension of the law, but someone who can uphold your constitutional rights, it doesn't make me a bad person. It makes me a good guy.
Yeah, it doesn't make you a bad person. I understand that. But would you admit that if you worked at a CVS, if any of us worked at a CVS, do any of us really believe that there wouldn't be one moment when we're stocking a shelf or in the bathroom where we would be caught off guard by somebody who wanted to seize that opportunity and hold us at gunpoint, even if we had a weapon? I think it's so naive to think that we are like completely defensible at all times, 24 hours a day. These guys have an advantage every single time they want to shoot us. Every single time they will catch you. And you know it. If you wanted to kill me, even if I had 4 AR-15s at my disposal at all times, you guys would find me when I'm not paying attention. It's just inevitable.
We're not looking for you. We're not looking for you. We're not looking for you.
Yeah, but that's not the point.
I'll say this.
The point is, if you wanted to. I mean, serial killers.
Well, if the dog wouldn't stop the shit, he'd caught the rabbit. It doesn't. If it's a big word, it's the smallest fucking word in the dictionary, but it has the biggest meaning. If.
Well, I mean, serial killers indiscriminately choose victims and kill them.
Well, they choose the easy targets, man.
Everyone's this fucking serial killer.
They choose the weakest, the weakest and the softest targets.
Motherfucker, that's what you are.
Listen, I will agree with you to the point that you're right. The guns alone are not going to, it's not the end all be all to your safety. I'll agree with you, and I'll concede to that point. However, do some self-defense training. I trained jiu-jitsu. I trained judo. I teach judo. You're right. There's going to be times if you're surprised, you're not going to be able to get to that weapon. And if you don't have some other training, if you're not, comfortable with defending yourself, being in close, then yeah, you're going to get fucking smoked. But if you have this other training, you're going to be able to subdue that motherfucker long enough to draw down on him and to either disengage and get away or hold him until the authorities show up. And I'm not saying you have to kill him, but if your life is threatened, then kill him. I mean, I train this stuff all the time. I've been training martial arts since I was probably 12 or 13 years old. And it's a skill. Ray, what's up, buddy? You got something? Yes, no?
Yeah, going back to the town that Stezo was referring to about the mandatory gun ownership. It was in Kennesaw, Georgia. It was 1982. Going into, let's see, the gun basically required all heads of a household to own a gun. They were exempt if they couldn't afford it, if they had a mental or a physical handicap that prevented them to do it. So it wasn't like a iron curtain in the arming direction. It was just a matter of, okay, if you're able-bodied and you can afford a gun, we're requiring you to own a gun. It was an enforceable law, but it was never enforced. However, in 1981, the year before the ordinance was adopted, Kennesaw recorded 55 house burglaries. The next year after it was enacted, there were only 26. In 1985, there were only 11. That's the case that Stezo was.
I'm not saying you all are Republicans. I don't know your political affiliation, but the Republicans will go to war with Obama for trying to mandate that we all have free health care, which is a Mitt Romney Republican idea. But they will even begin to suggest on here that you should be mandated to own a weapon, or that might be a good idea, or that it might statistically help gun violence. I mean, that's a whole new level of coercion, and I can promise you that's not constitutional, no matter how beneficial it is to gun violence.
Neither is forcing people to fucking buy health care.
Well, that's fair. At least
there used to be a system where you could get health care. It's called having a fucking job.
No, I'm not saying, I agree with you. At least you're consistent when you say that, but it is not consistent to say buying healthcare mandatory is wrong, but that one statistic in Georgia, that's great. That's not consistent.
No, listen,
Okay.
I don't think that people should be required to own guns. I don't think
agree.
that. I'm not saying that because let's face it, there's a lot of shitheads out there
sure.
that shouldn't be fucking carrying weapons. I'm a firm believer in that.
Mhm.
Okay. But I believe if you have the right to bear arms and you fit the qualifications required to bear arms, you should be able to fucking bear arms no matter what state it's in. Just as I believe that Obamacare being forced down people's throats is fucking bullshit. Not 1 year did I pay for Obamacare, and every year that it was in act, every time at tax season, I was exempted because I just went, no, I can't fucking afford
Right.
it, and my job
No,
doesn't
I agree.
supply it.
I don't think
Fuck
healthcare
yourself.
should ever be
So-
mandatory. I think there should be a there should be
No,
a,
absolutely
I think
not.
there should be a government option for you to opt into. If you don't like it and you want a private insurance company, that's fine. But
There is not one person in the United States of America right now that could not walk into a fucking hospital and get treated for whatever symptom they have. I don't care if it's fucking a herniated disc. I don't care if it's a fucking blown out fucking Achilles tendon. It doesn't matter. If you walk into a hospital, you will not be denied health care.
yeah, but there's
No
a lot
one
of
in the
people
United
who
States
have
of America
They're,
will be
they're-
denied health care.
that's
Ever.
true.
Ever.
That's true.
Ever.
But there's
Now,
two
it might-
caveats. There's
It might fuck with your goddamn credit score
right.
down the road.
Right.
it might fuck with your credit score down the road, but you will never be. No one will ever go untreated in the United States of America ever. Whether you're illegal, whatever the fuck it is. If you walk into a hospital, you will be treated.
But and that is true, but there is a devilish caveat to that, and that is it is so exorbitantly expensive that there are people with stage 4 pancreatic cancer and who have symptoms or who are dying, and they know they don't even want to knock on the door to access health care at all until it's
If
too
you have-
late and they're
if you
dead.
have
So
stage-
that doesn't mean anything to me
My
when it
mother-
comes to most of the civilized world that can, world that
hold
can provide this.
Real quick. If you have stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which my mother died of in 2002, at 54 years old, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The only thing you can do is start fucking sending cards to people, being like, "Hey, I remember when we used to be up at the cabin in the woods, and it was good." You might as well just start fucking sending out fucking notes because you're dead. It's
Mad-
the deadliest cancer on the fucking planet.
Mad amounts of
Fair enough.
marijuana.
You understand my point. You understand my point. There's people who can't get regular screenings that would cost all of us on here less in the form of our premiums would go down if those people could just get seen
Not
and
my-
get through the door, but they won't even
But
access
it's not
it
our-
because of the
It's
exorbitant
not
cost.
my fucking. It is not my fucking position in my life to make sure that you get a fucking test for your cancer treatment. It's not my responsibility. My responsibility is fucking getting a job that provides good insurance. You know what I pay for my insurance? You know how much comes out of my insurance per week? Nothing. Zero.
Let me interject here.
It's not.
So when does
It's not your responsibility.
well, what I want to say is when do we where's personal responsibility gone? When do we put the onus back on the individual? Why should I pay for you per se? I mean, if I'm doing
That's fine.
if I'm doing everything I'm
guys
supposed to
must
do,
have
I'm
a-
paying my taxes, I'm taking care of my family, I'm taking care of, their food, their health care, everything, and I'm paying taxes. Where's the personal responsibility? Why should I pay for you? I shouldn't have to.
Well, you're going to pay more by leaving those people off to their own devices because your premiums that you're personally responsible for, and that's why it's your business, they're going to go up every month because of all those people who can't
the ones that
access
went
the
up.
system.
You're talking about the premiums that went up fucking 1,000% as soon as fucking
Obamacare.
affordable.
Yeah. I worked with doctors,
Go fuck yourself.
emergency
Well, yeah,
room
it went up
doctors.
because people refused to join the pool.
Well, yeah, of course they did because it's ridiculous. I've worked with a couple of doctors that are ER doctors, and they couldn't afford the health insurance that was mandated by Obamacare, so
This
they chose
Best show
not to
on the
pay.
network right now. I'm telling you right now, this is the
What's that?
best fucking show on the network.
Hey, it is a good show. And let me say something though. The reason Obamacare, well, first of all, I don't support Obamacare. I want a national healthcare system that people can opt into. They have a choice. They don't have to do it. They can stick with expensive private plans that nickel and dime them every step of the way.
We've heard that
all
before.
day
You can
long.
keep your doctor if you want them.
No.
Let me be clear.
We felt that hook, line, and sinker. You can
Have-
keep
Let me be
Have
clear.
your private plan.
If you like your doctor,
Have
you can
private
keep them.
plans. If you want to pay insurance company marketing costs and administrative costs, and you want to pay back shareholders instead of cover healthcare, that's your choice. But I'm not going to choose that. I'm going to go into a national pool. But again, it should be an American people's
Right.
choice.
right.
I
You're
want
the guy
to. I
that-
want to.
You're the guy that wants to be anally pegged by a unicorn. That'll never fucking happen. We
No,
get it.
the rest
We get it.
of the
We get it.
world.
Listen.
The rest of the world is doing this. We're the exception. And
Listen.
We're the only dysfunctional healthcare system in the Western world.
I want to
This is
say.
not, rocket science.
I want to say one last thing on this particular topic, and that is, I agree 100% that our healthcare system is broken and it needs to be fixed. I don't believe Obamacare, Affordable Care Act is the answer.
It was fine up until 2008.
Now,
It
with
was abysmal
that
in
being
2000.
said, I want to fucking kill healthcare shit. Let's get back to what the topic is, and that is the Second Amendment. So let's get back to there.
I just want to throw something out.
Yeah,
I just want to throw something out real quick before you jump back to the Second Amendment.
yeah, man.
Did a quick Google. How many Congress people use Obamacare? It's about half. About
Really?
half of Congress actually uses Obamacare.
That's
What did that
much more
fucking
than
tell
I
you about
thought,
Obamacare?
actually.
Same
I
here.
thought
Forced
some would.
Yeah, I thought it'd be a lot
insurance
more. Interesting.
No, it's a shit. It's a
Yeah.
shit. It's a shit policy. I mean, it was a give out to insurance companies. That's no good. I don't think a faceless insurance agent should be determining the fate of your grandmother. Who knows nothing about medicine, has 4 other incentives not to care about how healthy you are. I think it's asinine. So I don't support that. But that's another issue.
Absolutely. So, getting back to the point. Oh, Jesus H. Christ. I think I just got a Woody. So you guys can't see, but Steve so broke out his AR-15 there, and I think I just wet myself a little piddle, but that's okay. Oh, bring it out everything. Don't make me break out my guns. Well, never mind. It's in my wife's purse. I can't break it out anyway. But moving right along.
We were talking about guns, not balls.
They're both in her purse. I'm not allowed to have them. Especially when I go out. But anyway, Miles, you doing all right, buddy? I feel like you feel like you're getting beat up a little bit.
Fun.
Okay, good.
No, it's been fun. It's been fun.
All right. Well,
I just want to interject real quick. The best thing about this is it's adult conversation.
Absolutely.
It's someone else's opinion versus someone else's opinion, and that's the best way to get through life is to talk about shit and fucking try and twist someone's mind to your beliefs and all that. So as far as the guest goes, I fucking love you. I would shoot somebody in the face for you.
And I want to say that. I want to say something too, and I appreciate that. I want you guys to know that what I'm communicating tonight, you all are friendly, law-abiding, loving people, and I don't want somebody to have an advantage over you. I might be wrong in your eyes, and that's fair. I might be insane and distorted, and that's fine. But I don't want someone else to pick you guys off. And my interpretation of the Constitution might be different, but it's in the interest of maximizing your freedom to protect yourself, but not making you vulnerable at the same time to these psychopaths who don't have the same kind of law-abiding aims you do. And I think when you boil down all these differences we've had tonight, it just speaks to the importance that there's a common area, there's a common document we all have to go to. I used to not really pay much attention to the Constitution. A lot of people in my party don't, I'll be honest. But if you're going to forge some kind of an agreement or get anywhere, you have to reach a common area of you have to have a soul, and that soul's in the Constitution, and you have to start from there.
I agree. And I don't, just for the record, I don't think you're wrong. All right. It's your opinion.
No,
I don't
I'm
have
right.
to agree with it.
I'm just kidding.
We'll bleep that out. Don't worry. No, I agree. I spent 30 years in military defending your right to have that opinion. And just because I don't agree with you doesn't make you right, doesn't make me wrong, vice versa. But it's super important to have these discussions. I think Congress is a prime example. There's no work. There's no reaching out across the aisle. It's tribalism at its finest. It's either you're on with me or you're wrong. And I don't prescribe to that at all, period.
Right.
But I do appreciate you coming on, man, because it takes a lot of balls to come into it's not really a hostile environment, but Rail, go ahead, buddy. What you got?
Stezo's here. It is a hostile environment first.
Fair enough.
But I just wanted to throw out also to Miles, and just like Stezo said, you know what I mean? I would fucking draw my weapon down to protect you just as quick as I would draw it down to protect my daughter. You know what I mean? Whether or not we agree on certain things, that's just how I tick. But I wanted to respond a little bit on what you were saying before, because you said you were assuming we're Republican.
Okay.
Don't assume that, because as far as I'm concerned, Republicans and Democrats are equally fucking retarded. Because just like Andy said, there's this tribalism, and it's we're right, you're wrong. It's we versus they. It's Bugs Bunny and Yosemite Sam with the we and they flag, and they're not fucking listening to each other. And they're never gonna, because they're too busy worried about who's lining their pockets and what they got to stand for.
That's right.
I'm more of a libertarian if you actually have to label me. But don't lump me in with those fucking sovereign Martians at the same time, because they're like each party has their own group of fucking zealots. You know what I mean? And that's what the problem is today. The problem is you have Democratic zealots, you have Republican zealots, you have libertarian zealots, you have all of these different people who are fucking zealots. And I'm more pragmatist. I look at it like my outlook is, look, I've got the right to protect my family. I've got the right to the pursuit of happiness. And I'm going to go out of my way to make sure that I stay in pursuit of that happiness in a healthy way without fucking up somebody else's pursuit of happiness. That's how I look at it. So with guns, I lean right. With abortion and drugs, I lean left. You know what I mean? Like, that's just me. But my whole outlook on the government in general is, you guys can pass all you fucking want out there. That's fine. Stay the fuck out of my house.
Yep.
Stay out of my religion. Stay out of my sexuality. And keep your fucking brainwashing shit to yourself and keep it off my fucking TV. That's how I look at it.
That's respectable.
Okay, I'm done.
I like that. I like that. I like that. And it's like the reason I think we get into muddy water is other people fuck this up.
Muddy waters.
Other people aren't responsible law-abiding citizens, and they start to infringe upon your rights. And now good people who have no problem whatsoever with you owning a firearm, no problem. I can tell you right now, I have no problem. You've waved that. I don't know what kind of gun that is. I don't even know if it's like a fucking Willy Wonka gun. I have no clue what it is. You keep waving it, but even you waving it in the middle of a hostile argument, I have no problem with you owning that gun. But it's because I don't trust people who want to kill all four of us. Not literally tonight, but I don't trust those people. And so you have to understand, the next time you bat a lefty like myself, we're not trying to take guns away from you guys, but we're trying to separate the wheat from the chaff. And we need your help. We don't need your opposition. And you need our help, and you don't need our opposition. We ought to really figure this shit out together.
I agree with you 100%. However, I would say you're more center-left. I'm sorry, Mr. Comic. God damn it. What the fuck's wrong with me? You're probably more center-left than left. But there are, of course, like Rail mentioned earlier, there's the extremists of both parties, right? And the majority of your party, or not your party, I'm not trying to point fingers. The majority of the Democratic Party right now is trying to take away guns, period. Now, you just so happen to be one of those intelligent individuals that we can have a great conversation with. And this is probably my most...
No, that's not an accurate representation of our party.
Well, it's representative of the small few that are in power. I'm not saying every Democrat is like that. I mean, you've got Dianne Feinstein, you've got Nancy Pelosi. That's
It's an accurate.
It's their mission in life to disarm the citizens.
Nancy Pelosi is one of 355 congresswomen.
I understand that, but how powerful is she?
Dianne Feinstein is a liberal senator, one of 100 votes. Those people cannot change gun policy on their own, and they won't.
You're right.
You have to worry when a president and a Congress wants that. And in the United States, with our checks and balances, that rarely, if ever, happens. And if it does, they'll be wiped out by the next administration and actually the next Congress in 2 years, and you'll get your gun rights back. So these
Possibly.
our system's structurally intact. I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Well, I was just bringing up a point. I don't think it's going to happen. My whole point in the matter was is saying that we're all four of us here are having a conversation, and we're not
as adults.
Yeah, as adults, we're not screaming at each other. I'm not saying you're fucking wrong, you're stupid, shut the fuck up, which is what we're seeing all over the news nowadays. We are having legitimate conversation, and that's healthy, and that's what this country needs, and it needs it in our legislative system. It needs it in our leadership, and we just don't have that nowadays, and it's sad. It's
and Lose the Radio is bringing that shit back.
That's right, motherfuckers. Dude. But I want so bad to do a Trump impersonation right now, but
do it.
No, Miles, I promise you I wouldn't, buddy. So it's not going to happen tonight, but maybe tomorrow night. I don't know. But anyway, no, this is probably
your Trump silkifies anyway.
Strategery. I didn't say anything about Bush. God damn it.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, this is probably my favorite podcast to date so far. It's been educational. It's been civil. We get a little bit heated. I agree with that. But hey, Jesus, man, we've been a little bit over an hour. So real quick, you've got something you want to announce. Is that correct, Miles?
I do. I have a new podcast coming.
Excellent.
She's pregnant.
I know. I was thinking the same thing when you said that.
Is this a fucking baby reveal?
I wore a rubber, I promise. So talk to us. Talk to me, Goose.
The daddy reveal.
Yeah, it's not going to be pink or blue. It's going to be white or black. God damn it.
Rainbow.
So my podcast is going to be the exact opposite of this topic today. It's going to be how to defend your country with chopsticks. No, I'm kidding. So here's
you mean popular?
What I'm actually going to do. So, anyway, it's a fun little thing. I don't know if you guys know about, Enrico Fermi. He's the Italian dude who helped build the atomic bomb.
Forget about it. Sorry.
All right. Well, there's something called Fermi questions, which are really hot right now. It's questions that provoke critical thinking. So if I asked you guys right now, how many piano tuners are there in New York City? We could talk for a whole hour and speculate about that because it's a really fucking complicated question. It would take us an hour to get even close to the accurate number. Do you have something to say?
Go ahead, brother.
My critical thinking response to that would be, well, how many pianos
that's
are
like
there
how
in New
you
York
start,
City?
but then there's so many other questions because it's like, well, how often does a piano get tuned, and how long does it take to tune it? Anyway, my point is,
I'd be like, that's something I can fall asleep to.
No. This is going to be super exciting because you can apply it to guns. You can apply it to anything you want.
Yeah, you can apply it to your phone and listen to it while you fall asleep.
Jesus Christ.
All right.
I think you're taking him a little too literal right now. Taking him a little too literal.
Now, man.
I'm sorry. You have to understand my mindset. I'm a third mic. I look for shit to fucking throw down range. As soon as something comes out of your mouth, I want to fucking destroy it as soon as you say it. So.
You are a third wave feminist with an AR-15, and there's nothing wrong with that.
And I produce this show, and I can bounce you out anytime I want.
It's a little late now. We're almost done.
I love you. I fucking love you. I want to meet you in real life.
Dude, I want to talk feminism with you. No, I would buy you a beer. I really would.
You'd have to buy me a case of beer, but that's
Natty Light.
Where are you at right now? Missouri, like Andy,
That's just
or where you at?
I'm in Western Kentucky, but I'll be Shameless plug. I'm from Milwaukee. All right, let's get that straight. I don't fuck cousins or anything. But I'll be. I mean, I would, but I have. I'll be in Milford, Pennsylvania, a week from today. Tomorrow, next Thursday, I'll be in Milford.
And why are you going to be there?
Yeah.
LTR Bash at Cliff Park Golf.
There you go. Shameless plug, as you said.
And you said my podcast was lame.
Dude, he's fucking with you, man. You get some thick skin to be on this show.
Thinking itself, like you.
The guy's going to a fucking golf bath with a bunch of 90-year-olds on Cialis, and he's telling me my podcast is lame.
Yeah, says the guy that opened his phone, says, "Siri, why am I single?" And she opens her front-facing camera.
Dude, this fucking podcast should be called dude, it's just one fucking 1 hour long Cialis commercial. That's what this is.
Hey, man, I resemble that. Knock that shit off.
So you have a boner? Okay, that's kind of weird. I'm out.
I was going to say, Miles,
I got a boner.
This has
You
you
got
aroused,
a
Miles.
boner.
Is that what you're saying?
I got a boner.
A little uncomfortable.
What's wrong with boners? Where's the crickets when you need them? God damn it!
Stinks like here.
Okay, so Miles, on to your podcast. Where and when are you going to be doing your podcast?
Honest to God,
And
though.
how long is it going to take to get you on the LTR network?
All right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at.
I want to kick off my podcast no later than September 30th. Probably a lot earlier than that. Now, it's going to be called Fun with Fermi because it's going to be a Fermi question every podcast. And again, it can run the gamut. We can talk guns. We can talk piano tuners. We can talk anything. Hypotheticals that spark half an hour to an hour of debate. But I want to specifically target people who are experts in that field. So, what 3 objects would you bring to space? Well, I want to talk to someone who has a good aerospace background, and we can shoot the shit with some gin for 1 hour, and we can talk about, well, why would you bring that?
Weed.
What are the logistics of that?
Weed, beer, and fucking food.
Pocket pussy.
Right, but think about how long of a conversation that might be. It's like, well, how do you drink in space? Can you drink in space?
I think you get more fucked up in space because you have no fucking buoyancy. There's no fucking gravitational pull.
Right. And
Alcohol
so,
just flows through your system. Like, it doesn't go to your fucking liver and you fucking piss it out. It's always here, man.
you
I think one beer in space, you're fucked up for 42 days.
Dude, you sound like a Kentucky version of Neil deGrasse Tyson.
So, hey, real quick, you're going to have a co-host on this podcast, correct?
Yeah, he's a mathematician. Well, he majored in math, so he has a math mind. I think he'd be good for it.
Wait a minute, is this the same guy I know?
No, you don't know him.
Oh, okay.
Wait, you say math?
He's a math dude. But like I said, I would honestly, for guns, I want one of you on there. You're holding deadly weapons. I want you on that podcast because.
No, okay, shut up, stupid. I want to host your podcast. I want to host your podcast. I want to hear on the LTR network. I'll produce it just like we're doing right now. You won't see me. It'll be you and your co-host. I'll turn my mic off and not fucking
bullshit.
No, dude, I would actually prefer that you do chime in.
And I would third mic-ish. But dude, okay, so you're in. As soon as this show's over, we're going to talk after the show. So finish. Okay, I'm done.
Can I conclude?
Absolutely, please do, my friend.
I'm trying to produce and fucking grow the show at the same goddamn time, and I can't do it live.
I know.
Here's what I'm going to conclude.
I was already thinking the same thing. You're shitting all over his show, and I'm like, no. Let's get on the channel.
Realizes he should have stopped talking 10 minutes ago.
Cheers to your show, my brother.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for the plug-in. I want to conclude with a few things, if I may, Andy.
Absolutely.
The floor is yours.
Absolutely.
Number one, it was a pleasure with all 3 of you, and I really like doing this, and thank you for having me. You guys are You guys are a really dynamic, fun little trio, and I love it.
And I will isolate every part of that.
Lying ass.
So thank you for that. To the incel basement dweller that criticized me on the phone call, you're dead to me. But I still love you, and I love to disagree. I don't know who that was. It was an anonymous caller, but I appreciate the tug of war there. And yeah, I love you guys. And by the way, if you in the future, and I only learned this like a week ago, so I'm fucking prime suspect number one. But if you come to a Second Amendment debate and you don't have a Constitution within 15 feet, you're dead to me.
So what I hear you saying is, what are you saying? You saying that?
By the way, Miles,
get it.
I was that caller because I didn't want to just jump on
Dude, I
mic
know, I
on
was
the show.
roasting you. I didn't really. I'm just busting your chops, man.
There's a reason why I didn't ask that caller to identify himself.
I know. I was just busting your chops.
No, I've appreciated you coming
It's all
on.
good.
I've talked to many folks about this topic, and it's not an educational discussion. It's a shouting match, and it's I'm right and you're wrong. No matter what you say, you can't change my mind. I think I've learned a little bit from you tonight. I hope you've learned a little bit from me and Rail and Steezo there. And we need more conversations like this. We don't need the yelling and the screaming. You know, I bring up this word tribalism a lot, but I feel it's the truth. You know, it's tribalism mentality. It's my way or nothing, and that's not how we're going to solve anything in this country. I mean, shit, we haven't freaking passed a budget in how long? Resolution after resolution after resolution. Why? Because we can't reach across the aisle and we can't come to a common consensus for what's the best for the American people. It seems like all our politicians nowadays, all they care about is them and staying in office and not their constituents. And that's both sides of the aisle.
Exactly.
Here is your topic for your next show. What you just said right there. When's the last time we passed a resolution that is good for the American people? Here is your response. That is your next show topic if you want it.
Excellent.
We are too busy focused on being black American people instead of being the American people.
I
Everybody's
agree.
too focused on the fucking blank before American,
Right.
and they shit all over the American part because there are too many special interest groups out there, and every special interest group is nothing but a tool of a government that would keep its population divided in order to rule it more easily.
I love that. What's your name, by the way?
Rizal.
Rail. I have one thing
Rail.
to say. You said something very important earlier, like maybe 5 minutes ago, and you said, keep the government off my television, keep them out of my religion, keep them out of my home. I want you to know that no matter how skeptical you are of me or my party, we're chasing that same spirit. And that's what I was trying to express at the beginning of this podcast. We're chasing that desire to feel totally free when we walk out of the door. And I get that you guys don't see eye to eye with us on the gun thing, and you think we're trying to trample you, but we're both chasing that desire to feel totally free, totally safe, totally just available to pursue whatever we want. And we see guns differently as a way to get there. But we both want that, and that should be the most important thing we're pursuing. And the fucking worst thing ever is that we veer left and right, and we're not working on it together. Because yes, we're angry, and I know it provokes so much anger within each of us for different reasons. But we've got to have each other's back, because that spirit we're chasing is much more important. And I think it's perfectly captured in the Second Amendment.
So my question to you, Miles.
And that is why you need to lose the
The what?
Radio.
And
Radio.
that, kids, and
Lose
that,
the
kids,
radio.
is why we don't smoke crack.
Crack.
Well,
I agree. I agree
I
with
mean-
crack. Yeah.
it's unhealthy.
My,
I mean, besides it, there's no like FDA
benefits.
regulated
Right.
minimum fucking. Okay, go ahead. Your show. I'm
anyway, that's all right. And so my question to you, Miles, is when we going shooting?
What's that?
When we going shooting? When you're in St.
They're
Louis,
calling
man,
it now.
come on. I'll
But
take you shooting.
I'll make you a deal. I will go shooting with you in St. Louis if you get me some Emo's pizza.
Done deal, man. That's easy. Shit.
Good deal.
Have you ever shot a gun? Have you ever shot a gun?
I did. In Illinois, I went hunting once. Wasn't successful, but I shot a rifle.
I've never seen anyone shoot a gun that didn't smile immediately after the recoil.
Right?
Ever.
I got nothing from it. I got nothing. I felt nothing. I felt dead inside.
You're shooting the wrong guns, brother. Shooting the wrong guns.
I want to shoot a.
So it was like fingering your sister?
It was like. I don't know. Have you guys played GoldenEye before?
No, but
no.
I've paid extra for it.
Oh, Jesus H. Christ.
I don't know if I understood that even.
You probably did.
Can I ask you guys a serious gun question?
Okay, make it quick.
You realize you put the word ask and serious question in the same statement with us.
What's your opinion on the golden gun? The gun that you can shoot any part of the body and you die immediately. Should that be legal?
I've never heard of such a thing.
I don't play video games.
Yeah, I don't live in video game world. that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's
We go out and shoot guns for real. We don't play them on fucking TV.
No, but I guess my greater point is there might be a technology down the pipe where guns become even more lethal, or it might be a different kind of weapon that becomes so lethal and so antagonizing to democracy and society that we're all going to have to think about this. And if you guys buckle under that kind of pressure, you were frauds from the get-go. I want to be very clear about that. If you buckle under the next weapon, however deadly it is, you are defeating every argument you made tonight. So
my point to that is,
So you're saying they're coming out with a round that will, no matter where you're shot, it's going to give you like HIV or some kind of deadly disease or something?
I'm saying there are weapons that are available probably in the military today, but there are weapons that can.
Okay, hold on. You can't say probably.
No.
I want facts. Don't give me. Don't send me down the fucking yellow brick road.
the rabbit hole.
Don't. Only.
Hey, Dorothy got to. That's a bad analogy because Dorothy
Only
got
speak
to
facts. I want facts.
All right.
Let me get this for a second, if I can. Okay, there have been weapons that no matter where they hit you will kill you for centuries. They're
Absolutely.
called poison-tipped fucking arrows, and they've been around since long
Agent
before any
Orange,
caveman.
whatever you want to call it.
So-
It doesn't. It.
I'll jump out on a limb and I'll answer your question there.
And I get what you're saying.
What I'm trying to say.
I get what you're saying about.
Is that we know the way of the world. We know that technology, Moore's law, it is exponentially accelerating in a predictable fashion for the last 80, 90 years, and it's going to continue. We know that deadlier weapons, more efficient weapons are right on the horizon. And I'm just saying right now that if any of you start to regulate those weapons because you say they're too deadly, they're too dangerous, you are Democrats. You are modern-day Democrats.
I can answer your question right now. I can answer it.
You'll never be pushed for any weapon regulation.
And then I support that.
Let me answer that question very easily.
Regulate them, you're done.
Miles, let me tell you what. I want
You'll
to
never
be
see that.
the first guy shooting that motherfucker. I'll tell you that right now.
The first
This-
gun
Hell
you've
yeah.
owned was a fucking Super Soaker 500, dude.
No, the first gun I owned was a Remington 1911.
No, that was his first nickname.
That's my porn name.
You guys
Worst
are terrible.
church camp ever.
You guys are terrible.
It's the wrong time to mention it's a family show.
It's been good.
All right, so one more time, brother. What's the name of your
family.
podcast going to be? One more time.
It's called Fun with Fermi, and it's going to be a Fermi question each podcast where I try to bring people who are good in the field to speculate about very thought-provoking questions. And the main idea of the series is people can't critically think anymore. We all kind of touched on that briefly even in this podcast. Like, people aren't talking They're not critically thinking. They're not thoughtful. And we need to get them doing that again. And we're going to have a little fun. Rather than kill each other on the Second Amendment, it's going to be stuff where we can really engage our own experience and play with it and mold it and have fun. Fun with fair meat.
So have
and you'll be
you?
able to find that, and you'll be able to find that live Monday nights at LoseTheRadioNetwork.com,
There you go.
Facebook.com/Lose.
That's a great point. Where can we find your podcast at? In the meantime, until we get on to Lose the
Don't
Radio.
worry.
Because I haven't
Rogan.
published it yet.
Right under Joe Rogan, you can find us.
Yeah. Look up Joe Rogan and then keep scrolling for 3.5 days, and you'll come across the pheromone fucking. cat.
Honestly, have you decided on a platform yet that you're going to use?
I don't know. Your co-host. What does your shirt say? Easily disabled by what does it say?
Easily distracted by shiny objects.
Oh, okay. I thought it said, "I'm
Squirrel.
disabled. Please talk to me." I can't really read it from here.
Yeah. Next time,
All right.
over my shirt says, "Fuck you, you fucking fuck."
That's a really kind thing to say to somebody you care about.
That is actually his way of saying I love you. But anyway, so
I was going to say, Tizo, he definitely doesn't know us very well.
Yeah, but we'll test pilot it. I have extremely good high expectations for it, and really my expectation is just to have fun. So that's good enough.
well, like everyone said earlier, we'll talk offline. But Steezo, it's about time, don't you think? There we go. Hey, listen, everybody. I want to thank you so much for coming on, sitting in the hot seat like you did. And I want to thank so much Lose the Radio for everything. And I look forward to a great partnership with these guys and some more awesome freaking podcasts.
Be sure to check out our sponsors.
Anything else, fellas, you want to put out before we pull out?
I'm not gonna anally rape your fucking outro to pimp DJNX Radio.
Do it, man. Do it.
DJNX Radio tomorrow night here in LTR. Facebook.com/LoseRadio. DJNX Radio Tuesdays and Thursdays. JTF on Wednesdays. Sweezy Digital Influence Live on Sundays. Great show. To the guest, I love it. I love fucking speaking to the people that have opposing views. I think it was a great show. Andy, you take us out now.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening again. I don't know all the sponsors, so I might need a little backup on here. Miles, thanks again, buddy. We will talk to you offline here. Steezo, I need a little help with the sponsors, buddy.
Cliff Park Golf. We have ironbeancoffee.com. We have Blue Line Farms. That's PHARMS.com. Whatever, doesn't matter. It's not my fucking show.
Hey, forget about it.
I produce.
Hey, man.
I'm not here to talk. I just interject once in a while. So, on behalf of Andy and Nothing's Off the Table, go fuck yourself.